It is 2 a.m. in New York, 7 in London, and 4 on a Monday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to the newscast. I'm Daniel Che, filling in for Moon Gan-young. Now we begin with some troubling news out of Libya. Seoul's foreign ministry says a Korean trade official was kidnapped in the Libyan capital of Tripoli on Sunday evening local time. That's early Monday morning Korea time. For the latest, let's go live to our foreign affairs correspondent Hwang Sung-hee at the foreign ministry. Sung-hee, fill us in.
Daniel, the Foreign Ministry has confirmed the identity of the kidnapped man as Han Seok-woo, the head of trade relations at KOTRA, the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency in Libya. The ministry said Han was taken by 4 armed men on his way back home from work on Sunday evening local time, which was around 1 a.m. here in Korea. The incident was reported by Han's driver, who was with him at the time of the abduction. He told the Korean embassy in Libya that the kidnappers stopped their car and threatened them with weapons before taking Han in their car and driving west of Tripoli. Not much information has been released about the identity or motive of the kidnappers, although the Libyan government suspects that Al-Qaeda may be behind the abduction. Now, the incident is being speculated as a pre-planned one, either for money or for political negotiations. Daniel?
Okay, so we have a little bit more on the details of what happened and how it happened. And now, how is the Korean government responding to the situation?
Daniel, officials in Seoul are working around the clock on the case. The government and KOTRA convened an emergency meeting earlier this morning to discuss the incident, and a special task force has already been set up, headed by the Foreign Ministry. Now, the ministry said that it will be working closely with all channels, including the Libyan government, for the swift and safe release of the abductee. The government has issued a special travel warning following the incident, banning all Koreans from traveling to Libya. Daniel, as you may already know, many parts of Libya have been hit by violence and unrest in recent years, with the capital Tripoli declaring a state of emergency this past weekend after fresh clashes with armed groups. As of January 18th, there were approximately 551 Koreans residing in Libya, and although there has been a number of robbery cases against Koreans in Libya, in the past, this is the first time a Korean has been kidnapped in Libya. Daniel?
Well, Sung-hee, we are all hoping for the safe release of the abductee. Thank you very much for that, Sung-hee, and do keep us updated on the story as it develops. Now moving on to another disturbing developments here in Korea, the latest on the bird flu outbreak here, that is. Officials say migratory ducks probably brought the virus to Korea. The government's ban on the movement of livestock and farm workers remain in place in parts of the country's southwest after authorities confirmed an outbreak of the highly pathogenic H5N8 strain of the virus at 2 farms. Our Park Ji-won has this story.
The nation's agriculture ministry has confirmed a group of migratory ducks found dead in a reservoir near a poultry farm in southwestern Korea were infected with the H5N8 strain of the avian influenza. The farm in Gochang, Jeollado province was where the first case of the bird flu was confirmed late last week. Currently, bird flu cases have been confirmed at 3 poultry farms in Gochang and Buan counties. 2 of those cases have been confirmed as the highly pathogenic H5N8 strain. The other case has yet to be identified, but it is known to be one of the H5 strains. Ministry officials say it is highly likely the migratory ducks brought the virus to Korea. The Agriculture Ministry called an emergency meeting on Monday morning to discuss measures to respond to the virus should it spread nationwide. The Korean government has already banned the movement of livestock and livestock-related facilities and people in Korea's southwestern Jeollado province for 48 hours in an attempt to contain the outbreak.
The Korean government has ordered a temporary standstill on livestock, people working at livestock farms and livestock facilities in Jeollado province to curb the spread of the avian influenza, according to the country's Livestock Infectious Diseases Prevention Act.
The order will remain in effect until midnight Monday, but the government might extend it according to the outcome of Monday's emergency meeting. Quarantine authorities say about 100,000 birds have been culled or will be culled over the next few days. Korea destroyed more than 5 million birds during the most recent bird flu outbreak in 2011. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Moving on to other stories, China has opened a memorial hall honoring a Korean independence hero who assassinated a top Japanese official, preparing Japan's annexation of the Korean peninsula. Now, the memorial hall is likely to aggravate China's already frosty relations with Japan. Tokyo has protested Beijing's plan to honor the Korean. Our Shin Se-min has more on this story.
A memorial hall honoring Korean independence fighter An Jung-geun has opened in the northeastern Chinese city of Harbin. The city's railway station is where in 1909 An shot and killed Hirobumi Ito, who had served as a prime minister of Japan 4 times before becoming the top Japanese official preparing for his country's 1910 annexation of the Korean peninsula. The memorial hall consists of exhibition rooms telling the story of An's life and shows the exact spot where the shooting took place. The facility was built after President Park Geun-hye brought up the idea of creating a monument for An during her meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping last June. Hailed as a hero in Korea and China, An is considered a murderer by many Japanese. Japanese government, which had asked Beijing to scrap plans to build a memorial called Embassies of China and Korea Monday to express regrets over the matter. And in the meantime, Beijing and Tokyo continue to be at each other's throat over a variety of issues, including Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's recent visit to the Yasukuni War Shrine, which honors Japanese war dead as well as several Class A war criminals. Japan's ambassador to the U.S. fired the latest salvo, accusing China of a misled campaign that falsely portrays Abe as glorifying Tokyo's militaristic past. Both Japan and China have come under international scrutiny in recent months. Japan for Abe's Yasukuni visit and China for its recent demarcation of a new air defense zone over a disputed area of the East China Sea. Seoul and Beijing have condemned Japanese politicians' visit to the Yasukuni Shrine and for Tokyo's refusal to apologize for the nation's wartime atrocities. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
A monument remembering the suffering of thousands of women drafted into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II has been built in the U.S. state of New York. Resolutions from both the New York State Senate and the New York House are engraved on the statue, helping to remember the victims who suffered. Officials say an opening ceremony will be held on Friday. Last Friday, U.S. President Barack Obama has signed into a federal spending bill that includes a provision of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement. The bill cites a 2007 resolution asking for the Japanese government to address the issue of the so-called comfort women, mainly from Korea and China, who were forced into sexual servitude for Japanese soldiers during World War II. Prime Minister Chung Hong-won has ordered the chief of the nation's financial regulatory watchdog to come down hard on those found responsible for the mass data leak of more than 20 million bank and credit card users here in Korea. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
The government has warned that those found responsible for Korea's largest ever personal information leak will face extremely tough criminal penalties. Prime Minister Chung Hong-won on Monday ordered the chief of the nation's regulatory body, the Financial Services Commission, to toughen penalties and inform the public about the exact damages and circumstances of the massive data leak. Chung also asked for strong countermeasures to ensure such incidents don't happen again. The information of some 20 million Korean bank and credit card users has been leaked, affecting almost all economically active people in the nation. The data was stolen from KB Kookmin Card, Lotte Card, and NH Nongyap Card. The Financial Supervisory Service says information taken includes the names, phone numbers, credit card numbers, addresses, and even banking records of millions of customers. State prosecutors have moved to reassure the public that this incident has not resulted in the leakage of any information to criminal organizations, for now at least. The Financial Supervisory Service says the credit card companies will cover any financial losses caused to their customers. While the watchdog is pushing to strengthen related regulations by having financial firms tighten restrictions to access client information, it's warning customers to be alert to online and phone-based financial scams. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
The personal data of at least 20 million bank and credit card users in Korea has been leaked in one of the country's biggest ever breaches, as the story just now we've covered. Many major firms here have seen customers' data leaked in recent years, either by hacking attacks or their own employees. In the latest case, an employee from personal credit ratings firm Korea Credit Bureau has been arrested and accused of stealing the data from customers of 3 credit card firms while working for them as a temporary consultant. We have Dr. Kim Byung-ju, head of KLMP Consulting, and our regular commentator live in the studio to provide us with some valuable insights. Now, Dr. Kim, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Well, the stories are fairly confusing.
Right.
How exactly did this happen, and what made it possible? Those are some of the big questions, first and foremost.
Right. Based on the reports that have come out so far, I think what you have described, at the beginning of this segment itself, is pretty much the main trunk of the story itself. The credit rating agency personnel actually working for 3 major credit companies: NH Credit Card, and then KB Credit Card, and Lotte Credit Card. And this person got hold of about, now the number seems to be increasing like by the hour. We began, I think, during the weekend about the report about 17 million people. Now the number is over 20 million here. And I just checked myself, and I'm included one of the victims, together with former presidents, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and all these big names in Korea. Pretty much, they're talking about 3 out of 4 persons here in Korea who are involved in economic activities are affected here. So I guess we have to assume that you are one of the victims as well here. And so this person got hold of this personal information, and then reportedly he sold this information to a advertisement agency personnel. And then this person also sold that information to the person who's in lending promotion business, lending solicitation business, and so on. So what the government is saying is, so far they think that has been the scope of this information being shared, and that's pretty much contained right there. But Korean people are concerned whether we can 100% be sure about the fact that actually that's the pretty much the scope where the use of the information is contained, or whether that information has leaked somewhere else and then going around and being circulated elsewhere. So that's the biggest concern.
Right. I guess some of the very lucky few who did not get involved with the data leak might feel a little bit neglected to be unable to join the club, because I think 20 million basically covers everyone, every credit card users here in Korea.
Indeed.
Well, anyway, judging from the story, should we say the root cause of the problem lies in the business need for these kind of personal information for consumer marketing, etc.? They do share it a lot amongst themselves.
Yeah, I think it's a correct observation, particularly about this issue here in Korea. Elsewhere around the world, in the United States, for instance, they had famous case of Target credit cards, having problems a few weeks ago in the United States. But those kind of cases in the United States and elsewhere, often we find it's the result of the hackers' misbehavior, if you will, if you can use that word. But here in Korea, because the businesses are widely using this telemarketing, using not only telephones but emails and text messages, this personal information itself is a valuable business product or business material that's widely circulated. And often we are forced to agree for our information to be shared with different entities here in Korea. That is the main cause. So this is the business that seems to be kind of like a driving overall problem, if you will, here in Korea. Unlike other mischiefs here, in the United States or elsewhere, who are doing funny things, illegal things, illegally overseas. So there seems to be a clear distinction, if you will. I know there is always risk of the overgeneralization, but for sure here in Korea, the problem seems to be the business use of personal information and the system that seems to promote actually the legally sanctioned use of this personal information. That seems to be the root cause.
Right. I mean, to sidetrack a little bit, there are some hackers who just want to make a name for themselves to get into these kind of activities. But more so in Korea, it seems like it's former employees, those who are involved in the business, who actually get, I guess they kind of contribute to this kind of process.
Insiders are definitely problems here in Korea, right?
Well, I guess the one thing that's burning in the minds of many Koreans, especially those who are among the 20 million, including myself, extent of damage that we know so far and what we can expect in the near future.
I already mentioned the scope in terms of like how this use of information has been contained according to government announcement. But then again, there is seems to be a sense of misbelief here, and also basically depending on which credit card you're talking about. KB credit card, they're saying the leaked information includes various things, but not the credit card number itself, they're saying, or the expiration date. But NH Bank's credit card and also Lotte credit card, actually the credit card number together with expiration dates have been leaked, which means actually those people overseas could actually get hold of these. They can actually use this information for buying stuff for their own use. So meaning criminal activity is possible overseas. So we are very much concerned whether that information, that category of information has been leaked outside Korea, or will it be leaked later on in the future after being stored somewhere else. So that's a real concern. For now, government is adamant that it has been contained, but once again, the sense of distrust seems to be quite strong.
Right. Clearly, I do feel a little bit anxious in the back of my mind, even as we speak. Now, so when we talk about damages, we have to cover this, like yin and yang, ebony and ivory, shadow and light, compensation. Let's talk about possible compensation. What can these organizations or maybe the government can do to compensate possible losses?
For now, several things. These credit card companies are saying that whatever the damage that consumers will get as a result of this leak of information, they will cover the damage.
Well, that's a big promise there.
Right. I don't know whether that could be actually kept in place or not, but they're saying even there are rumors and reports saying these credit companies could actually offer the waiver of the annual fees for the entire year for those who are affected, but that needs to be confirmed. And there are rumors and reports about these credit companies offering the credit data protection service for free for about a year. But then again, this will not be the end of the story, because authorities are talking about placing punitive damage suits, and also some of the civic groups are talking about bringing class action lawsuits. So in terms of damage and compensation, I think we'll continue to hear more and more and greater extent of these in coming days and months.
Such a shame that the capable people who are able to, just fish out these information are doing it for very selfish and evil purposes.
Sure.
So good if they could have used it for something better.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, that's the case. But also, we are concerned about if this could actually recur in the future. What are we doing in terms of a permanent fix or something that can be done to ensure nothing like this ever happens again?
I'd like to go back to one of the previous points that we have already dealt with here in Korea. I think that we need fundamental change in terms of our thinking of this personal use, and maybe change of law that will actually restrict this kind of system, or not allowing the system where the consumers who are forced to agree on letting their personal use to be shared with other companies. Often the case, like even when you make a reservation, movie tickets, for instance, you have to agree on, you have to check the boxes where basically you're agreeing for your personal information to be used for whatever use. You don't know the scope beyond which your information will be used. And we do have that system, and that's legal system here in Korea. And I think that will have to be made illegal, and we will have to be able to make a choice where we will actually disagree with the personal use of our personal data for different kind of business purposes, still get our transaction done. And I think that's the fundamental change that we will need to have in place here in Korea.
Right. In the meantime, people might stick to cold, hard cash and exchanges like that instead
Underground
of credit card.
economy.
Underground economy, maybe. Well, Dr. Kim Byung-ju, head of KLMP Consulting, as always, thank you for coming up with some brilliant insights to all the questions that we have.
Thank you very much.
With rapid changes in the global economy, up-to-date business and financial news has never been more essential. See what's making markets tick around the globe. We speak to the experts and cover the biggest financial stories.
North Korea provocation.
Quite good. We received a lot of positive feedback, especially from those abroad.
Moving on to other parts of our world, the Chinese economy grew at the slowest pace in 14 years in 2013, largely because of low growth in investment and domestic demand. China's National Bureau of Statistics said Monday that the nation's economy grew 7.7% last year. The overall growth was backed by 7.7% growth in the fourth quarter, an increase of 1.8% from the previous one. While the jump surpassed China's 2013 growth target of 7.5%, the figure represents the country's weakest annual growth since 1999. Analysts point out that the Chinese economy could slow further this year as Beijing plans to shift its focus away from exports and investment to domestic spending and consumption. Now taking a look at how the market closed here in Seoul. Shares steadied on this Monday thanks in some parts to better than expected economic growth in China and bargain hunting. But investors stayed cautious at the start of a week that will offer macroeconomic cues from home and abroad, as well as corporate earnings. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi gained 9.3 points, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq climbed 0.36%. The Korean won traded at 1,064 won against the greenback. Moving on to other stories, President Park Geun-hye on a state visit to Switzerland has been busy promoting Korean culture and taking part in various performance-related events. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju, who is traveling with the president there, sends us this report.
President Park has been putting great emphasis on culture as a means to better communicate and connect with local people when she travels to different countries. She made sure to keep this tradition going in Switzerland. The president attended the Korea Fantasy on Sunday, a performance composed of various Korean traditional dances by the National Theatre of Korea at the Pal Clay Center in Bern. The Korea Fantasy has been performed more than 600 times in some 60 countries to promote Korean dance to global audiences.
한국 전통 춤은 무용은 역동성이 있으면서도 또 정적인 면이 있다고 하는데 오늘 여러분 보시면서 그렇게 느끼셨습니까?
President Park stressed that culture connects the minds of the people living in different circumstances and using different languages and will eventually bring everyone together. The presidential office of Cheongwon says the president's participation in the event demonstrates her determination to expand the Korean wave, or Hallyu, which is currently centered around Korean dramas and pop culture, to traditional culture and even fine art. Ahead of the performance, President Park also looked around an exhibition on the life and work of German-Swiss painter Paul Klee, who is known for painting the first abstract works in the 20th century, along with Russian artist Vasily Kandinsky. She also met with 6 pro-Korean figures in Switzerland, 3 of whom worked at the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission in Korea, and called on them to act as a bridge between the two nations in their respective sectors. President Park is scheduled to hold bilateral talks with President of the Swiss Confederation Didier Reynders on Monday and seek ways to strengthen cooperation in the sector of advanced technology and benchmark Switzerland's educational system. Oh Jin-ju, ARIRANG News, Bern.
Top U.S. officials will be in Seoul this month to address uncertainties in the region stemming from North Korea. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State William Burns, who will arrive in Seoul today, is scheduled for talks with South Korea's top presidential security advisor Kim Jang-soo and Vice Foreign Minister Kim Ju-hyun. As Burns' visit comes after Pyongyang's proposed the two Koreas stop any actions that could stoke tensions on the peninsula, such as calling off Seoul's annual military exercises with Washington next month. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia Daniel Russell will visit Seoul on Sunday to discuss regional issues, including strained ties in Northeast Asia, following the Japanese Prime Minister's controversial war shrine visit. U.S. authorities are looking into the credibility of a possible new threat to the Sochi Winter Olympics. ABC News reported Sunday that Islamist militants in Russia released a video recorded by 2 suicide bombers who said the Olympics will not be safe, adding that they have a present ready for the Games. The opening ceremony will be held on February 7th in Sochi. In the face of concerns about possible attacks by militants, U.S. military and intelligence officials have been studying contingency plans for evacuating Americans from Sochi in case of a crisis. But U.S. officials have concluded there would be no major obstacles. They would be rather major obstacles to mounting a large-scale mission, as Russian authorities have historically been reluctant to allow foreign military forces, especially those of the U.S., on Russian territory. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. For the latest, stay tuned to ARIRANG. We have a lot more coming your way on Early Edition at 6.